Exactly. I think that's what we've been saying. There's a couple more minutes for you to be on the show. I want to touch on crystals. If you can tell me anything about crystals, there's a lot of people talk about crystals hold energy, quartz, and things like that. We understand that crystals were in radios and were used as a conductor of electricity. Am I correct on that? Or
quartz crystals are used in all radio equipment to this day because quartz has an interesting property where if mechanical force is applied to it, it produces electrical force, and if electrical force is applied to it, it produces a mechanical force, so it's a reciprocal situation. So you can cause a quartz crystal to mechanically vibrate, which will give rise to electrical vibration, which in turn goes into a circuit that turns it back into mechanical vibration, and it compounds on itself and it sings at a frequency.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the frequency of like your silly phone or, the clock rate on your computer or whatever device you have gets its rhythm and frequencies from one particular piece of quartz. Now, the other crystal, the crystal radios and the crystal rectifiers, that's what's inside the transistors.
Mm-hmm.
And these crystals change their conductivity and the way that they pass electricity by the electrical force that's applied to them, so that you can apply a small electrical force to a particular crystalline substance, such as iron sulfide or pyrite, and that small electrical force will cause a much larger electrical response in the crystal, and in a certain sense kind of pull the wave in, and that serves as a detector.
Mm-hmm.
So normally the feeble radio waves or electrical impulses are not strong enough to cause a mechanical action on a relay or anything like that. But if you apply that to the crystal changes inside, and all of a sudden the crystal turns from one electrical state to another and lets you know this thing's there, and then it will close a relay, or, if the oscillations are fast enough, it can move the armature on a speaker.
Mm-hmm.
And these devices today are known as diodes and transistors.
Mm-hmm.
So those are the two different types of crystalline applications in electricity. For quartz, now, you can go beyond, but, we're in a continuously changing electrical field of varying intensity. Well, that has an influence on all the quartz. Then, of course, you have all the quartz, and mechanical stresses on that have the influence on electricity, and this has a lot to do with my telluric wave research and earthquake things and stuff like that. Is just the massive quantities of frequencies and waveforms being produced by the Earth, and it's very difficult to account for exactly how they would come about from the way geologists and physicists describe the construction of the Earth.
Mm-hmm.
But that's a whole different topic.
Yeah.
I got somebody that's going to be calling me for an interview here shortly on that subject.
Okay.
So that's actually, that's the project I'm engaged in here right now with the government and all that, and we just got our funding to go, work on our polls and the whole thing to be able to tap back into this again. It's going to be quite an effort.
We actually just did a podcast about crystal magic and about the energy that is stored in crystals and actually released from crystals as well. And we kind of likened that to the scepter of a king or the staff of a magician with the crystal on the end of it, and where there's thoughts or frequencies to be released as an extension from the hand and released at the end of the rod or the end of the staff to bring about, magic. And whichever type of magic, you want to deal with, there's, a lot of different types of magic, and as far as frequencies and vibrations and causing things to happen differently. And that's what we've been talking about the whole show, sound and vibration.
Well, the crystals, are very highly organized chemical and electrical patterns, physical electrical patterns, however you want to describe it. So that causes them to be archetypes.
Mm-hmm.
So a crystal, in a certain sense, is very similar to what Chaldean and Pythagorean concept of the number.
Uh-huh.
So it gives it a power on that level that's beyond, electrical or physical explanation.
Mm-hmm.
On the bottom level, you're dealing with archetypes again, formative forces. And again, that's going to be modulated by the overall cosmic induction, which changes, from minute to minute and day to day.
So they have their own equation, each crystal, whether it's a amethyst or a ruby or something like that. Everything's going to be different, right?
Well, they're all going to have their own archetype. In other words, if you break them down or you fracture them and look at the patterns, they create the same pattern. They're a specific form. No matter how fine you divide them, they're still the same shape.
Okay.
And that serves as an archetype. And then that's also a polarization because you have all these little points which you could conceive of as electric charge or something that creates induction. So the crystal kind of pulls this ether force into it and then turns it into a physical form. And then that comes, like with the quartz, then that in turn can come back out as a mechanical or some kind of, a different type of force, a transforming device, so to speak.
Yeah. So they kind of liken that too as well. The ephod mentioned up in the Bible that there was all these different rupees and things like that were fixed to this big breastplate type thing. And there's people who also believe that there was a type of conductor as well with all these different types of emeralds and amulets and things like that. And that it actually helped the person get in tune by wearing this vesture and get in tune and speak to God and have an experience with God through these crystals.
Well, I mean, if somebody knew how to engineer that would make sense. And that's one of the applications of gold also. Gold is one of the few metals that has direct electrical contact to the ether. And one of the reasons why it's used in electrical contacts and all that is it's hard to get gold in a situation where it doesn't have a surface conductivity. It will not form an oxide or something that will block off direct electrical contact to the environment. So that immediately suggests its use as some kind of antenna surface. Its original, application with humans was not something to hoard for, its E equals MC squared reality, but was something that allowed you to receive or contact. So it's postulated that the pyramids in Egypt, when they were completed transforming apparatus and not skeletons like they are now, is there was a layer of quartz and then a layer of gold on the outside of that, and this thing was basically a giant electrostatic condenser of sorts beyond, the medieval churches of Europe.
Yeah. So we're talking about tampering with these different frequencies, electromagnetic fields in the body.
Well, inductions is a proper word for it.
Okay. I said tampering. So
yeah, because there may be frequencies or there may not be frequencies. And electromagnetism is a very specific geometric relationship between the dielectric and magnetic fields, but those fields can take on numerous other configurations that have been erased from the textbooks. Yeah. And the secret societies, like the Masons and whatever, not all this conspiracy stuff, but the real stuff, back to the Pythagorean sect and all that. These were the holders of the engineering secrets of how to do these things, so they wouldn't become lost. So when the time was right for the human race to re-engage in this, the information would still be there. So this is definitely not the time now. The human race is not in a position where, it's already making enough of a mess with the low-level, coarse fields and inductions that it has access to. God knows, what it would turn into if these people were able to take it to a higher level. So this information will always remain occult as long as that's the human condition.
Hidden.
Yeah.